Hello, my name is Angela Ryan. I'm the technical lead on the National Water Resources Plan for Irish Water. Thank you very much for inviting me here today to discuss how Irish Water will secure drinking water supplies into the future. First off, by way of introduction, the public water supply in Ireland consists of 539 individual non-interconnected water supplies. On a day-by-day basis, we provide water to 4.2 million customers by 1,090 abstractions, 749 water treatment plants, and 65,000 kilometres of distribution network. However, about 60% of our supplies do not meet appropriate utility risk performance standards in terms of quality, quantity, reliability, and sustainability. This does not always result in non-compliance, but can manifest itself, particularly during adverse weather conditions, where customers may find themselves subject to precautionary boil water notice after heavy rainfall events, or they may also have interruptions to supply during drought or cold periods. Irish Water may also need to make interventions in the natural environment to ensure continuity of our supplies. So what are we doing about this? Well, Irish Water is developing a National Water Resources Plan. So what is a National Water Resources Plan? It is our 25-year strategic plan for public water supplies. We will identify the needs across all 539 water supplies and develop plan level options to address these needs. So why do we need a National Water Resources Plan? Well, it allows us to align our activities with EU and national policy, to maintain services in a changing natural and legislative environment, to facilitate sustainable economic growth and development, to set clear approaches and targets for ourselves as a company, but also to be transparent in our activities. So how does Irish Water plan for water services? Well, under legislation, we're required to produce a water services strategic plan. That's our tier 1 plan, where we set out our business objectives in terms of safe and secure water, meeting customer expectations, protecting and enhancing the environment, supporting social and economic growth, and investing in our future. We then develop tier 2 plans, an example of which is the National Water Resources Plan. And these are the framework to allow us to achieve these business objectives. So they allow us to adopt government and business policy, to set standards across each of our supplies, to identify the needs across each supply, develop solutions, and then prioritize the rollout of those solutions. We prioritize the rollout of those solutions through our capital investment plans, so our regulated 5-year capital investment plans, but also operational measures across our supplies. As this is our first National Water Resources Plan, we've split it into 2 phases. So phase 1 is the framework plan, and this is where we set out the methodology we will use for water resources planning across our 539 water supplies. We also identify needs within the framework plan. We've just completed the statutory public consultation on the framework plan in March of this year. We've updated the final document based on feedback received during this consultation period. And this framework plan has recently been adopted by the Irish Water Board. Phase 2 of the plan is the next stage. Phase 2 is where we will identify plan level solutions for the identified needs across all water supplies. And we'll roll this out as 4 regional water resources plans. It's been split into 4 regions for delivery purposes only. And this is due to the volume of information that needs to be reviewed and to ensure that the consultation stages are meaningful. There'll be a cumulative assessment of each of the subsequent plans as we roll out the 4 regions. So the first regional plan will be the Regional Water Resources Plan for the Eastern and Midlands region. We've just commenced the SEA scoping on that plan and envisage that we'll be out to public consultation on that plan in September of this year. This will be followed closely by plans for the Southwest region, Northwest region, and Southwest region. So what does it mean for each of our supplies having a water resources plan? Well, it allows us to assess each water supply in terms of quality, quantity, reliability, and sustainability to identify need. So in terms of quantity, we look at the supply-demand balance within each supply. So the supply-demand balance is where we review the raw water availability for each supply in the natural environment. We assess our water treatment plant capacity and also the capacity of our bulk distribution network. On the demand side, we look at the volume of water our customers require for non-domestic needs, domestic needs, and also the efficiency of our network in terms of leakage. We forecast the supply and demand balance over 25 years to understand what the needs will be in the short, medium and long term. In terms of the quality assessment within the plan, we've used an interim barrier assessment where we look at each of the water supplies and we assess them in terms of risk of non-performance. So we look at each supply, the type of raw water within that supply, the type of assets we have to address the raw water quality and understand if there's any deficit between one and the other. In terms of reliability, we assess the critical assets within each water supply. And as part of sustainability assessment, we assess the low flow yield of each of our water sources, drought and climate change impacts. We then develop options to address these needs. The options can be capital or operational, and the option types fall within 3 pillars of solutions. So lose less, use less, and supply smarter. Operational options include improved understanding of operations and our raw water resources. So for example, development of storage curves for an impounding reservoir site. So this allows us to optimize the storage curve to improve the deployable output and water availability at that source, but also to ensure that we understand the sustainable naturalized compensation requirements at each site. The use less pillar consists of leakage prevention and reduction options, including pressure management, active leakage control, find and fix, DMA calibration, water mains rehabilitation, and combinations of the above. Pressure management allows us to reduce pressure within our networks. This prevents leakage from occurring in the first place, but also where we have leakage to reduce the amount of water lost. Active leakage control and find and fix allow us to reduce leakage over time. DMA calibration allows us to understand our networks better and refine our leakage reduction activities. Water mains rehabilitation is where the assets have failed. There are too many interruptions to supply and we need to replace the asset. Under the use less pillar, this is water conservation measures. So we have initiatives such as the First Fix Free scheme, where we can go onto private property and repair leaks for private users. We have water conservation messaging. We also have water efficient businesses. So we've set up a certified stewardship program, which allows us to go in and assist non-domestic water users in becoming more efficient with their water use. We also use water conservation orders during drought periods. We have a household water conservation charge under development. We also have initiatives such as water efficient homes and green schools. At present, it's very difficult for Irish Water to quantify the outcomes of the use less activities. However, we're very, very committed to activities under this pillar. As our data improves over time, it will allow us to understand and quantify efforts in this pillar. Under Supply Smarter, we look at our existing and future water supplies, and we try to ensure that we have sustainable groundwater, sustainable surface water sources, that we utilise ground and surface water storage where possible, where we initiate catchment management measures to ensure water quality and also to improve raw water quality. We promote activities such as conjunctive use, where we look at combinations of groundwater and surface water sites. We look at improving the interconnectivity of our 539 existing supplies. We also look at other measures such as treated effluent recycling and desalination. What we find as part of water resources planning is that generally for each water resource zone, the solutions are combinations of activities under 3 headings. So we might have a new groundwater source, but plus leakage reduction and water conservation measures. How do we develop a preferred approach for each supply? Well, we follow a process whereby first we identify the needs in terms of quality, quantity, reliability, and sustainability for each supply. We then conduct an options assessment screening. So we have a team including a hydrologist, hydrogeologist, environmental scientist, ecologist, and engineers who look within the natural environment to see what are the full list of unconstrained options we could use to address the needs within a given supply. We then start to screen these options. So we start to remove all of those that are environmentally unsustainable, any that may not be feasible, or any that have particular resilience issues. We've aligned our screening questions with the topics within the SEA, and this ensures that environmental sustainability is built into decision making at the outset. So at the end of this screening process, we're left with a list of feasible options for each supply. And for that list of feasible options, we conduct an outline design and costing. So we consider capital costs, whole life operational costs, environmental and social costs, but also embodied carbon and whole life carbon costs for those supplies. For each supply then, we have an approach development. So we categorize each of those feasible options in terms of which are the least carbon, most resilient, best environmental, least cost, but also considering that our cost includes carbon costs and environmental costs, and quickest delivery. Our team then look at each supply and based on the specific needs within each supply, choose an approach for the supplies, which is articulated then within the 4 regional plans. Within the Water Resources Plan, we also have a feedback and monitoring loop. So this allows us to take any emerging or new government policy, also improve data and information, and feed it back into the top of our water resources planning process, and allow us to ensure that the preferred approaches are still valid and up to date. So what does this look like for the 125 individual supplies within the regional plan for the Eastern and Midlands area? So within this region, we'll estimate that we will review over 1,100 unconstrained options. We'll develop outline designs and whole life costing for nearly 600 feasible options and develop a preferred approach for each supply. After we complete the 4 regional plans, we will understand the investment requirements and transformation required across all of our supplies, allowing us to develop the strategic funding plan and prioritise activities for the capital investment plans. At the end of this process, when we have prioritised the water supplies, we'll conduct a deeper dive into the preferred approaches to understand how we can decarbonise and reduce or remove any impacts related to the plan. So this will involve site level assessments for nature-based solutions, biodiversity action plans under the concept of no net loss, and also energy efficiency reviews for treatment and distribution options. So the outcomes of the National Water Resources Plan, well, it will allow us to review our supplies in a consistent manner, to develop a clear approach to resolve any issues across our supplies, to prioritise investment in water services in a transparent way, and to address key issues such as improved level of service, sustainability, environmental change, changing legislation. Activities that we will conduct in the immediate term measures, these will be to identify and monitor the critical supply-demand balance issues across critical supplies. So we'll identify and prioritise the supplies with significant supply-demand balance issues. We'll develop and monitor drought leading indicators, so early warning indicators for those supplies. And we'll also report monthly on the supply-demand balance deficit in critical water supplies. Also within immediate measures, we'll develop and roll out leakage reduction activities for those critical supplies. So we'll roll out and monitor active leakage control activities to reduce supply-demand balance deficit. We'll monitor the cost effectiveness and the performance of those leakage reduction activities. So in summary, the development of the National Water Resources Plan has allowed us for the first time to develop a plan that will secure drinking water supplies into the future. As I was saying, we've adopted the framework plan. We'll be commencing the public consultation on the regional plan for the Eastern and Midlands region in September of this year. And we anticipate that we will have the other 3 regional plans completed within the next 12 months. Thank you very much for your time today.